Hello students, welcome back to Accounting 2302, Managerial Accounting. In this lecture we are going to begin covering problem 17-3. Now I am covering this problem because more than likely you will see this on your exam. This is a comprehensive problem where we are going to be completing a cost of production report. Okay. It is very important that we learn how to prepare a cost of production report. That is why I'm giving you several problems in your homework and several examples so you can go over. Okay. Now, before you begin working on the problem, it is imperative that you read the chapter. Okay. Sometimes students message me or call me that they're very lost, but when I start asking questions, they have not read the chapter. So it is very important that you do not skip that step and that you read. Okay. Now, when you are working out these problems, make sure that you locate the specific problem in your book that deals with what you're going to be covering. For example, in this problem, we're going to be dealing with the equivalent units and related costs, and we're going to be preparing a cost of production report. So I will go over to section 17.2 and read over the cost of production report section. Okay, so there's a lot of important information. I am not going to be reading it for you. It is there so you can review. Once you review the information, then you can start tackling the problem. Okay, now this problem is comprehensive. Like I said, the problem reads as follows. So we have White Diamond Flour Company manufactures flour by a series of 3 processes, beginning with wheat grain being introduced in the milling department. From the milling department, the materials pass through the sifting and packaging departments, emerging as packaged refined flour. The balance in the accounting working process in the sifting department was as follows as of July the 1st. So we have working process in the sifting department. Now these are products that we started last month or last period, and we did not get to finish them up. Okay, so we're going to transfer them over to the following or the preceding month, and we're going to finish the process for them there. Okay, so here we have 900 units, which are 60% completed. We've got direct materials of 1,845, conversion cost of 216. Now remember, conversion cost is your labor plus your manufacturing overhead. Okay, so your total cost is of $2,061. The following costs were charged to the working process of the sifting department during the month of July. We have direct materials that were transferred from the milling department. We've got 15,700 units at $215 a unit. That gives me 33,755. We've got direct labor of 4,420, and we've got manufacturing overhead of 2,708. During July, 15,500 units of flour were completed. Working process in the sifting department as of the end of July was 1,100 units, which were 80% completed. Now, using this data, we're going to prepare a cost of production report for the sifting department for July. We're going to journalize the entries for cost transfers from the milling to the sifting and the cost transfers from the sifting to the packaging. And then we're going to determine the increase or decrease in the cost per equivalent unit. I'll let you answer number 4, which is more of a discussion about the report itself. Okay, so let's begin. We're going to start off with White Diamond Flour Company. We have where we're preparing a cost of production report for the sifting department. Remember, there are 3 departments. We've got the milling, the sifting, and the packaging. Okay, so we're going to focus on the sifting department. Okay, so we're going to begin with the units charged to production. We always begin with our inventory in process. This is what we've carried forward from last month. What did we start last month that we did not finish? Okay, so according to the problem, we have 900 units that were started and not completed. So we're going to put those in the whole units. Okay, then we have the items that were received from the milling department. Okay, so according to the problem, from the milling department, we got 15,700 units. So my total units accounted for by the sifting department will be the sum of those two, your beginning inventory, plus anything that was transferred from the milling department. Okay. Next, we have our units to be assigned cost. Like always, we begin with our inventory in process. July the 1st. So, as of July the 1st, how many units did we have in work in process? According to the problem, we have 900 units. Now, out of those 900 units that we are carrying from last month, how much of that are we going to have any direct materials for purposes of that inventory? Remember, I stated earlier that when we are dealing with direct materials is charged when we begin production. We charge materials up front. So you ask yourself, when do we start manufacturing these products or these units? Well, these units were carried forward from last month. So that means that last month we charged the materials to that process. This month, we're not going to charge anything for direct materials. Now, for the conversion cost, the problem says that they are 60% completed. Now, what is your conversion cost? Okay, remember your conversion cost is your cost for labor and overhead. Now, for our purposes of the conversion, how many of the 900 units need to be completed in the month of July? Okay, so during the month of July, we have 900 units. Okay, we're going to multiply it by the number of units pending to be completed. So if we had 100%, okay, and 60% were completed last month, that means that this month we have to complete 40%. Okay, so we're going to multiply the 900 units times 40%, and that will give you the amount that needs to be completed of the goods for that batch in the month of July. Okay. Then we're going to have what was started and completed. Okay. Now, during the problem, we're going to look down here. It says that 15,700 units were transferred in from the milling department. 15,700. Now, out of the 15,700, not all of them were completed in the month of July. The problem states that we have 1,100 units that were not completed. So, if we had a total of 15,700 units transferred in, okay, and then from those 15,700 units, we have 1,100 that are not completed. That means that we must have completed 14,600 units, okay? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get the 15,000. Let's do the calculations. We've got 15,700 minus the 1,100. That gives us 14,600. For purposes of direct materials, when did we start working on these products? We started working on these goods in the month of July. So remember, materials are always charged the month when we start the process. We started the process in July, so for direct materials, the entire 14,600 will be charged for materials, okay? Now for conversion costs, that is also the same thing. Conversion cost, remember, is our overhead and our labor, okay? So how many units did we start and complete in relation to overhead and labor in the month of July? Well, if we started and finished them, that means that we used up the 14,600 units were used for conversion purposes. Okay. Now we can get the total to be transferred to the packaging department. Remember, we're not done yet. We're barely in the second step or second process. We still need to do our thing and then transfer all of the information over to the third department, which is the packaging department. So transfer to the packaging department, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our beginning inventory plus what we started and completed in the month of July. That gives me 15,500, 14,600, and 14,960. Now, do we have any inventory in process? This is the inventory that we started but did not complete. And remember, down here we do have our ending inventory. So we have inventory in process as of the end of the month. Now this will be the starting point next month in August. Our ending balance transfers over to our beginning balance the following month. So my inventory in process on July the 31st, okay? According to the problem, we have 1,100 units right here that were not completed, okay? For purposes of direct materials, when did we start manufacturing these products? We started in the month of July, so that means that the entire 1,100 is going to be assessed for direct materials. Now for conversion, we have, okay, and I'm going to do this. We've got the 1,100 units, okay, and according to the problem, they're 80% complete. So if it's 80% complete, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to multiply it by 80%. That will give me 880. So for conversion cost, we've spent $880 on converting the money, okay, or the products in itself, okay. So we have our inventory in process, 1,100 whole units, 1,100 for materials, and for conversion only let me put it right here so that way we know it was 80% complete. Okay, that way we know. So we charged 80% of the completion to conversion cost the month that we worked on the product. Okay. Now that we have that, we're going to get our total units to be assigned cost. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add So we get 16,600, 15,700 for direct materials, 15,840 for conversion cost. Okay. Let me delete this. Okay. Okay. So we're done with the top part, which was to identify our equivalent units. Now we know that we have for direct materials 15,700 equivalent units. For conversion costs, we've got 15,840 units. Okay, we've got a total of 16,600 whole units. Okay, now we're going to start charging our cost to those units. Cost per equivalent. Okay, so we're going to have our total cost for the sifting department. How do you spell sifting? Here we go for the sifting department. So according to the problem, my cost that was transferred in from the milling to the sifting was $33,755. Okay, we're going to bring that in. So we're getting that from the problem. Right there. Okay. So the actual total that was transferred in from the milling to the sifting was $33,755. We're going to bring that over. Oh Lord, 33,755. Okay. For conversion, what do we have? What is conversion? Remember, conversion is equal to your materials and your, conversion is your labor and your manufacturing overhead, okay? So, conversion cost is your direct labor and your overhead, okay? So, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our labor and our overhead. So we're going to have, okay, where do we have the information? Let's see. Oh, here we go. I was like, where is my info? Right there. Okay, so according to the problem, we've got direct labor of 4,420, and we have manufacturing overhead of 2,708. So we're going to add those two together. So we're going to add, why is it, okay, there we go. We're going to add our labor of 4,420, and we're going to add our manufacturing overhead of 2,708. So my total is 7,128. So I've got my materials and I've got my conversion. Okay. So my materials cost and my conversion cost for the month. Okay. So now we're going to divide by our total equivalent units. Now that information, we're going to grab it from up here, which is where we did all of the calculations. Now we're going to look at equivalent units up here. Okay, we're going to focus on this section right here, equivalent units. So for materials, how many equivalent units do I have? Okay, according to the problem, we've got equivalent units of 15,700. So we're going to bring that, we're going to bring it over down here. Okay, so we've got 15,700. For conversion, we've got 15,840. So now we're going to calculate our cost per equivalent unit. Okay. To do our cost by equivalent unit, we're going to divide our total cost for the sifting department divided by our equivalent units for the materials. And that's going to give me, let's see, let me put that gives me $2.15 per unit. Okay. We're going to do the same thing for conversion. We're going to get the total cost divided by the equivalent units, and that gives me 45 cents. Okay. So for every unit, I'm going to charge $2.15 of materials, and for conversion, I'm going to charge 45 cents of materials for each of the units manufactured in the sifting department. Okay. Now we're going to have our costs assigned to production. Okay, so we're going to begin with our inventory in process. July the 1st. Okay. So the inventory in process July the 1st, the cost is provided to you. It's $2,061. So my inventory in process, my cost is $2,061. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring in the next item. To complete inventory in process, July the 1st. Okay. So to complete, let me capitalize the 2. Okay. So to complete the inventory in process, July the 1st, okay, what do we have here? Okay. So we're going to bring in, okay, we're going to be looking inventory in process. This is the line item that we're going to be looking at for now. I'm going to be highlighting it, okay, so that way you know where I'm getting the data, okay. So the green goes with the green, okay. So how many units to complete inventory in process in July do we have for materials, okay? For materials, we had 0, okay. Okay. For materials, we had 0. For conversion, we had 360 units. Okay. So we have 0. We have, let me move this, no fill. Let me fill in this right here. Okay. So our inventory process July the 1st, we have to assign cost to our beginning inventory. Now we talked about in materials. Materials is charged the month that we begin production. That was in the month of June. In July, therefore, we're going to charge $0 because we didn't have any items or any equivalent units for materials up here. We have 0, so my inventory in process will be 0. Now for conversion, I had 360. Okay, so we're going to get the 360, okay, that we have up here, and I'm going to multiply it by my rate of conversion, which is 45 cents. That gives me 162. Okay, so you're going to get your numbers up here, your materials and conversion, okay, and then multiplying by the cost per equivalent unit. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to add the total of these two amounts. That gives me $162. Okay. Next we have the cost of completed July 1st working process. So to get the cost of completed July 1st working process, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add those two numbers. That gives me $2,223. That is the cost of the completed July 1 working process. So these are the goods that were transferred from last month to this month. This is how much we spent in materials and labor and conversion to be able to finish up the products. $2,223. Okay. Then we're going to shift our focus to what was started and completed in July. This is what we started in production in the month of July and we finished it. Okay. So according to the problem, okay, now we're going to look at started and completed. We're going to be looking at this one right here. So for materials, I've got 14,600 units for equivalent units, 14,600. So I'm going to do 14,600 and I'm going to multiply it by my rate. For materials, my rate is 215. So that will give me 31,390. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for my conversion. For your conversion, we have 360 units. Okay, I'm sorry. For my conversion, I've got 14,600. We're looking at the started and completed in July. We've got 14,600. Okay, and my rate is 0.45 cents. So that gives me 6,570. Okay, so my total that I've spent on the goods that I started and completed in July is 37,960. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to add those together. Oh, and I was entering the information in the wrong cells. Let me move those down here. Okay. Okay, so this is my total. Okay, so now I can get my total here. And I'm going to add them together. Okay, I was putting them in the wrong cells, guys. You see too many cells here in Excel. So what was started and completed in July, you're going to get your materials from up here. We have 0. And then we have 360 times 45 cents. For the ones that we started and completed, we have started and completed is my blue one. Okay, so what we got was the 14,600 of materials times my rate of 215. Look at the formula bar. For my started and completed in July for conversion, we're going to get the 14,600. Look at the formula bar times the 45 cents. Okay, and my total is 37,960. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to figure out what's going to be transferred to the packaging department. So we are done with our process in the sifting department. The goods are done. We need to move them out to the packaging department, which is the last process. So we have transferred to the packaging department. Okay. So how much are we going to transfer to the packaging department? So to transfer to the packaging department, we're going to get the total of what was started last month and we completed it this month, plus what we started and completed this month, and that gives me 40,183. Okay, so that is what was going to be transferred. Remember, we have to finish the products from last month, which we did. That's the green. And then we put into production new products, and we finished them in that particular month. This is what we started and finished in the month of July. That is the blue cells. Now we're going to transfer to the packaging department the sum of the two, which is 40,183. Now, we are not done yet because we have some inventory in process. Remember, we do not always finish what we start. At the end of the month, according to the problem, we have 1,100 units that have not been completed. We look it down here, and it says there that we have 1,100 units that are 80% complete. Okay, so when did we start these units? In the month of July. When are we going to finish them? In August. Now we are focused right now on figuring out what are the costs that we're going to charge in the month of July for those 1,100 units that we started but we didn't finish. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to get the 1,100 units. Okay, and I'm going to multiply it by my $2.15, which is my direct materials cost per equivalent unit. That's gonna give me 2,365. You will always be multiplying by down here. Now, if you look, what did I do? I got the 1,100. Where am I getting these numbers? I'm getting them from up here. Let me highlight those in let me do, what color should I do? Okay, let me do that one. Okay, so the peach color refers to the inventory in process at the end of the month. So my inventory in process at the end of the month, these are the calculations. So where am I getting the amounts from? I'm getting them from here, materials and conversion. So I'm looking at that 1,100 and 880 to run my calculations. You grab those two numbers, you multiply them by your cost per equivalent unit, and that gives you your cost per unit. Okay, so we're going to have 880 times 0.45 cents. That gives me $396. We add them together. That gives me 2,761. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to figure out the total cost assigned by the sifting department. Okay, so for the total cost, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add. Let me go ahead and delete these down here. I don't need them. Okay. Okay, so my total cost is going to be what we were transferring to the packaging department and what we have left over from this month, and that's going to get transferred to last month. That's going to give me 42,944. These are the total costs assigned by the sifting department, and we're going to break it down between what we're transferring out and what we're keeping. So we are transferring out 40,183. We're keeping in our inventory in process 2,761 for a total of 42,944. Okay, so the key here is to calculate your equivalent units up here because you're going to need the numbers in green, blue, and peach. Once you get these numbers in green, blue, and peach, you simply multiply those numbers for either materials or conversion by the direct materials cost per equivalent unit calculated and your conversion calculated. You multiply that, and then that gives you your cost per equivalent unit. So it's basically a flow of information from the top section. You multiply it by the medium section, and then you get the output at the end. Okay, so that is what we have. Let me delete this. Okay, once we're done with the cost of production report, the second requirement is for the journal entries. Okay, now let's look at the journal entries. What are they asking? According to the problem, we have to journalize the entries for costs transferred from the milling to the sifting. So the first entry is going to be us moving the balance from the milling to the sifting. Okay, so the account that we're going to be using is the work in process because we are processing the goods. Okay, so who is receiving the goods? Okay, the products, the units. The goods are being received in the working process for the sifting department. So the sifting department will be momentarily holding on to the balance. Now the balance that we have is 33,755. It says direct materials transferred from the mailing department, 33,755. Okay, so we're going to enter that here. Now, where do we take it out from? So we're taking it out from the work in process mailing department. So all we're doing is we're taking out the 33,755 from the mailing because they're done with it, and we're going to move it over to the sifting department. This is the department that will receive it, receive the products, and then continue the process of manufacturing it. Okay. Now the second part of the journal entry says journalize the entries for cost transfers from the milling to the sifting and the cost transfer from the sifting to the packaging. Okay, so now that we're done with some goods, we have to move them because they're completed. We have to move them to the last and final stage, which is the packaging department. Now, how much of the goods are we going to be transferring? Okay, so according to the problem, what is transferred to the packaging department is 40,183. So that is going to be going up here. The 40,183 is what gets transferred to the packaging department. That are the goods that have been completed. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do work in process. Who is receiving the goods? The goods are being received by the packaging department. Okay. Now what's going to happen? My work in process in the sifting department will be decreased. Okay. Because now I'm going to get all that working process and move it over to the next department, which is the packaging department. And the amount, like I said down here, is 40,183. Okay. Now the third requirement, determine the increase or decrease in the cost per equivalent unit from June to July for direct materials and conversion cost. So what we're going to do first is we are going to do, let me move the arrow a little bit. Okay, so we're going to do the calculation for direct materials first. So for direct materials, if you look, my cost per equivalent unit that we calculated in the month of July is $2.15. We calculated that number. I'm going to subtract for the amount that we had for my cost per equivalent unit for materials last month. So if we look over to the data being provided, okay, so we have direct materials of $2.05. Okay, let me see. So right here, $2.05. Okay, so for my direct materials this month, my cost per equivalent unit was $2.15. Last month it was $2.05. So that gives me a 10-cent increase. So my direct materials cost increased by 10 cents. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for conversion. If we look at our data, my conversion cost is 40 cents. Oh, sorry. I wanted to do my conversion, insert shape right here. So for my conversion, I was given 40 cents. Okay, so we have 40 cents for conversion. That was what we paid last month in the month of June. Now in July, my conversion cost is 45 cents. So we're going to have 45 cents minus 40 cents. That's going to give me a 5-cent increase. So if you notice, your materials and your conversion costs both increased from the month of June to the month of July. My materials was $2.05. This month it's $2.15. Last month my conversion cost was 40 cents. This month it is 45 cents. Okay, so those factors will change a lot of the information because our cost is increasing with time. Okay, so that is why it's important that we do a comparison so we can figure out if we can make any adjustments to bring those costs down. Okay, so those are the 3 requirements. I'm going to let you do the 4th requirement on your own, which is discuss the uses of the cost of production report. Please make sure that when you are bringing down the numbers down to the second section that you use your direct materials equivalent units and your conversion cost equivalent units. I've highlighted them so you can see where they relate down here. Okay, I want to encourage you all to please work on your assignments on a timely manner. That way, if you do have any questions, you can get with me Monday through Friday and I can be able to respond. A reminder, any messages, emails, pronto, anything received during the weekend will not be answered until the following Monday or business day if there is a holiday. Okay, so that is it. There's a lot of information. You will have a cost of production report on your exam. Please make sure that you do practice. 2 attempts are provided on your homework and the highest grade is retained. Okay, so that is basically it. Make sure that you read carefully because sometimes students miss 1 or 2 things. Please read the problem carefully before working on the assignment, and use all of the resources provided, whether it be the Show Me How videos, the PowerPoints, the ebook, my lectures, whatever helps you get the problems done correctly. Okay, so that is it for this lecture. Until next time, have a wonderful day.